I'm Louis Test, and this...
I'm Joni Test.
Okay. And you were both evacuated during the wildfire. Could you set the scene for the day?
Well, my wife was sleeping, and she woke me up and said that she could smell some smoke. This was about, what?
2 o'clock in the
2 o'clock. The power was off. Actually, the power went off earlier than that. And she woke me up, and I looked around the house, and I couldn't find any fire in the home. And at that point, she suggested that I look outside because she could still smell the smoke. And at that point, I walked outside, and the whole horizon behind the homes there was just a glow. At which point I told her that you got to come out and see this, which she did. And I'd had some firefighting experience when I was going to college, and the wind was blowing from the northwest, so I didn't feel that we were going to be in much of a problem.
So he went back to bed. And I said, no, get up and get dressed.
So in about a half an hour, the wind started to shift, and then we could see the smoke and start smelling the smoke. And so we got up at that point and just kept an eye on it. And about, what, 3:15?
We had an amazing group of people that phoned and wanted to know if we needed help. And Lauren Neal and her family came over to help us with the horses. Carrie Basta, who lives on Windy Hill, came over. And one of my other 4-H'ers just showed up, Tim Rampton, and helped us put up a barricade to move the horses out. It's really difficult with the wind and the fire and the darkness trying to move livestock. So we had some great people come over and help us, and my son-in-law Cameron came over too, and we started moving the horses down. I think the first thing that we were concerned about are our pets and our animals, and so we got the horses moved down to the lower area, which is green and wet, and our sheep, and then we got our cat, dogs, and desert tortoise together in a room in the house so we'd know where they were in case we had to evacuate, and started gathering up materials. And at that time, after we got the horses moved, the winds shifted, and our friends had to go back to their property over on Windy Hill at Del Monte and move their horses out too. So it was kind of a lot of scurrying and a lot of people helping other people.
And what special circumstances did the horses present during the wildfire?
With the wind and the flames and the smoke, it was really hard to get them haltered. Fortunately, the gelding that we have was really good, and we got the halter on him. We never could get the halter on the other 2 animals, but with him we were able to halter him, and he led the other mares down to the lower pasture. But with the wind and the smoke and the fire, these horses don't respond the way they normally would.
And also too, initially we had no electricity, and we're on well, which runs off electricity, so we're virtually left with nothing to fight these fires. No water. Had a shovel, but that was about it. So we try and get everything together that's valuable to us, the living things first, and then grabbed up some quilts and some pictures and some crocheted stuff and a couple pieces of antique china, and headed out, kind of the things that you cannot replace. So.
How would you describe the ember activity during the fire?
Well, because the wind was blowing so hard and it was swirling, the embers were blowing all over the area. Fortunately, we've got a pretty good fire break between our house and where the fire was. But if you can look up here on the side of the mountain, the fire had actually come all the way over to this end, and then the wind shifted and started blowing again to the north. As it was going back, you can see a structure up there, the remains of a structure of a home up above us there. When the embers were blowing back and the wind had shifted, it got into some of the landscaping, and they lost the home up there, which was really a tragedy.
But it looks like the wildfire stopped just beyond your pasture.
Yeah, probably about 75 yards.
Of the field.
Well, the field, our neighbor's field. But like I say, the wind shifted probably about 6:30, 7 o'clock is when the wind shifted. I was able to come up and feed the animals. The fire department did let me come in about 7:30, and that's when the house on the corner was actually being engulfed in flames.
And the next time that this happens, you've already experienced how many fires here?
4.
4 fires. And so the next time this happens, are there things that you'd do differently? Any steps you might take before the fire?
Not go back to bed.
We're considering getting a pump to put in.
Or a generator.
Or a generator so that we will have water.
And the reason that a generator and a pump would be helpful for you out here?
Well, fortunately the power did come back on about 3 o'clock, so we were able to use the hoses, and I watered down all the different brush between the house and this area, and to try and make sure that if the embers did blow back in, that they'd land on a wet surface and put themselves out. But
you also did the roofs and the gutters.
The roofs and the gutters. The other thing, gutters a lot of times will get leaves and so forth in them, and so you want to make sure that they're wet down to make sure that if the amber does get in there, it won't take off on you, especially since it's right up against the wood framing of the home. We had shake roof here when we originally moved in, and we've eliminated that now and gone to the fire-resistant shingles that make you feel a lot better when you see those embers blowing around.
Okay.
Previous times, Ted Borda has had his sheep in the back eating a lot of the grasses and the weeds down, and I wish we could open up more of that area back there for that type of grazing. It would help the livestock people as well as the homeowners. It's a good weed abatement program.
They in the early spring they go after the sheet grass, which is a very rapid, very flammable material that spreads the fires really quickly, and if we could get some of that undergrowth underneath the sagebrush and so forth eliminated, I think that would make a big difference so far as the control of range fires.